Shirley here with Sirius Salus Moon, and let's do the Do Not Disturb. Now that I learned that there is such a thing on my phone. Yeah, Jupiter hour, Jupiter day. Jupiter is 11 degrees Cancer in the 9th house. The moon is in the 12th house. It just crossed over Spica. And so there are a couple of reality checks. Venus ingressed into Cancer, and she's going through the square with Neptune and Saturn. And this means that Venus in Cancer is going from the square to the trine with Neptune, Saturn in Aries. And she's going from the sextile to the square with Chiron. She's going into the sextile with Uranus, and she's going from the inconjunct to the opposition with Pluto. So that marks the journey of Venus in Cancer. On the road, she's going to meet Jupiter, something we had only in 1942. You'd be surprised it's considered a benefic conjunction. It's next to Sirius. And so a couple of reality checks about Venus in Cancer, because with Venus in Cancer, what we usually experience, and we will experience that as well this time, and that is anything Venusian becomes self-care. So let's say this is where you go to, I don't know, a life coach, or you go to the doctor to have a checkup, or you go for your blood test, or you go to do something that is kind of like for your health, or something that you need to do. And then they tell you, you know what, you need to take care of your inner child. How about connected with your feminine? When was the last time you were shopping for clothes? And that's kind of like your mental health, giving you advice. And you're like, oh my God, going shopping is actually good for my mental health. Going to a restaurant is actually fantastic. Putting on some makeup is considered caring for myself by the welfare. These welfare people that... Is this person functioning? Are they? It's like if you did your nails, you're doomed. If you didn't do your nails, you're doomed. And if you didn't fill out the forms, but this is where Venus in Cancer is about the pleasurable becomes self-care, and self-care becomes pleasurable. That's why we love Venus in Cancer. This is where your spousey that wouldn't touch the kitchen decides they want to take a cooking class, and lo and behold, they got some talent. Okay, it's kind of like, oh my God, my feminist wife is cooking. What is happening? Venus is in Cancer. Okay, and so a lot of us are waiting for this Venus in Cancer. Now, Venus meeting Jupiter. Okay, Venus meeting Jupiter is kind of like the two great benefics. Everybody make babies. I have colleagues that 3-4 years ago were talking about the venupiter conjunction in Cancer. It's like, I'm going to have a baby on that day. I'm going to have... I planned for this to be the 9th month, so the 8th and something months, so this will be when the baby is born, and shit that astrologers do, okay? And I have some reality checks, because first of all, yes, Venus is co-present with Jupiter in Cancer, okay? Everybody, take your... This is what invented cheat meals. Cheat meals is an advice to have a good diet. Okay, that's kind of like everything is benefic, everything is optimistic, pleasure is good, opportunities is good, everything that is sweet in life is good. Yes, you need to eat well, and you need to eat healthy, and you need to brush your teeth every day, and you also can't stress too much about that. Okay, this is all Cancer season with the benefics in Cancer. Um, and the hype is good. The hype is correct. That being said, a couple of reality checks to that hype. First of all, Venus is squaring, beginning with the square to Saturn and Neptune, which means that there's going to be a caveat to those pleasures. Okay, Venus Saturn can absolutely be you're invited to a great dinner or great party or great wedding. There's an amazing buffet. You're just treating your candida, and everything is Italian style. Okay, it's gluten upon gluten with more gluten and gluten for dessert. Okay, another thing can be you're invited to this conference in Japan, and everything is so very interesting and so on. But one thing you don't like matcha. So this is more or less the ingress. Of course, it can be some more annoying things. Your car breaks down. You're supposed to go to a vacation, but you spend time, fixing your car, which takes a lot of delay because it's Saturn. Hopefully not an accident or anything like that. There can be an issue of sickness or disease troubling your more Venusian plans. Okay, you schedule a date, and let's say you schedule a date with someone, and you have to call in sick, and they're like, they're probably not interested, and you're like, no, I really wanted that date. Okay, and then by the time that you've recovered, it's kind of like they're dating another person. So it can be that type of it can be that kind of falling into a crisis point where there's a reality check to that Venusian expansion, optimism, pleasure, and so on and so forth. But we're going from the square to the trine. Okay, so it begins iffy, and it will get better later. The second reality check that I have with Venus in Cancer is that the venupiter conjunction with Sirius will be with Venus ruling over a Libra Mars. And thanks to colleague, I don't remember which colleague named that, but we're also going to have Hermes asteroids and the Kronos asteroid in the mix, which means that it's going to carry a heavier undertone. Perhaps there is going to be something that will take time. Perhaps there is going to be an issue to untangle about not consuming our own creations. Okay, because Cronus was the father that was eating his own child. With Hermes, there is an alchemical issue to do with that. And Mars is in Libra. So Mars in Libra is at its detriment because Libra is about balancing things, and Mars is about making a decision and going with it. And so it's an act of balancing that can be repetitive, and there can be a lot of annoyance, and that Mars is in square relations, okay, by sign with the venupiter, the venupiter celebration in Cancer. Okay, so there is something that is, if we want to capture that energy, we're going to have to deal with the fact that Venus is ruling over a detriment to Mars in Libra, which is going to be super annoying because we can't get rid of that Mars in Libra. We'd have to wait a month, and then Venus is already in Leo, or we have to capture that when Mars is still co-present with Ketu, but Venus is not yet completely out of the square with Saturn, which is very likely what we're going to do. But I said do not disturb. It's written do not disturb. I thought it's going to work. Anyway, um, so now we have the one final reality check for the celebration of the venupiter in Cancer, and that is at the end of its journey, Venus will oppose Pluto. So now Venus is beefing with Pluto and Saturn Neptune. She will become better with Uranus and the Saturn Neptune, but she will be beefing with Chiron in Aries, which also means Aries, okay? The Ubermensch asteroid, and Pluto. And that means that we're entering with a confrontation, with a letdown, with a delay, and we are continuing on with a hey, we have to catch Venus still square in Saturn before Mars ingresses into Libra, and that's effing annoying because we've been waiting for that venupiter. We continue with the Venus square conjunction Jupiter once in pretty much once in a lifetime. Okay, it's once in 80 something years, kind of like a Uranus transit, kind of like a Uranus return. But there is Cronus and Hermes there, which is kind of like, there's a party and the theme is skeletal. Now that it can be fun, it can be joyous, but what if you're actually looking for a different color palette? Okay, what if you're actually looking for the pastel type of decorations and the sweet cupcakes and so on, and you're not really into the corpse bride stuff, okay? Um, and it continues on with, we just begin with a beef and then we leave with a beef. So that being said, it's not like it's not going to be fun having Venus in Cancer, okay? Actually, August is considered kind of the stillness before the storm. It is in no way still. The only way it is still is like the metal, but it is the stillness before the storm, because in September we have the lunar and solar eclipses, which are going to activate the world arena from a point of view that we already seen it being activated, and it goes, how should I say, it's going to be busy. Okay, September is busy, but we're still going to have that Venus in Cancer joy. It's just that it's not going to be as exciting as we expect Venus in Cancer to be. Now, for the record, the upcoming transits to Cancer are looking pretty much the same. Okay, for the coming 2-3 years, it's looking pretty much the same. There's the bisextile. Well, the bisextile is in harmony. Everything that conjoins it has a disharmony with something. And it's going to be that it's always U3. Okay, I said it a couple of years ago on Spirit of Matter when I was talking about the bisextile. As for going from the sextile to the trine with Aries, Venus is values. Now, a lot of people talk about Aries as the LGBTQ, and it's not that it's wrong, but I think a much easier to understand is seeing Aries as the superhuman Ubermensch project. So for those of you that have late degrees of Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, yes, ascendant sun or moon, or significant placements. For example, I have the lot of fortune squaring that. Um, and that has been a very important significant transit in my life. I have Mercury squaring, conjoining Aries. So for many of you, it's going to very likely take about a decade, at least a decade, and that's the decade of the struggles that nobody speaks about, because it's not even in the major. It's like it's an asteroid. Every once in a while somebody pays attention to Aries when there's an A-bomb in the menu, but that's it. And so this is where the cloning MK Ultra project meets your significant points in a crisis. It's kind of like there's no going away from the fact that you are personally affected by those projects. So Venus is about values, and the beef with the Ubermensch project, Venus is fertility, for example. Okay, think about artificial womb versus fertility and joyous and orgasmic birth. Okay, orgasmic birth versus artificial womb. Venus is in Cancer, okay, or next to Procyon. It's about sweetening conflicts, always looking, okay, what is my part in the issue? Aries was the one that was secluded, so much so that she couldn't even do that introspection, because when you are not even a part of society, how can you make a progress regarding mingling with people? Okay, that's something people usually practice when they mingle with people. Aries creates a Trojan war to see everybody fighting everybody. Okay, because she's so not included by everyone, so she's mad at everybody. Venus in beef with that, because Venus is in a place or a value that always try to see, where is my part in that equation? Now, it's not wrong to ask ourselves, what is my part in that? What can I change? What choices can I change so that my situation is better? But this is something that's completely not accessible to Aries. And when Aries tries to mingle, it's not really like, she doesn't even have the leverage of connection Venus to begin to have an introspection. Okay, think about the person that hasn't drank water in a while. Okay, they need water. First they need to drink water, and then they can think about, okay, what are the things that I can do to keep fresh water nearby. Okay, but with Aries, of course, it's kind of like a Mowgli situation where they just get everybody to fight with everybody because it's interesting. But when we want Mowgli to reintegrate into society, going about it from a value of Procyon, how can we reintegrate Mowgli? How can we civilize Mowgli? Okay, no, because we are not civilized for the fact that Mowgli was in the forest and none of us paid attention to that. And so with Venus in Procyon, the only way to begin to process that conjunction is think about, hey, what is wrong with us as society that we didn't even know that those things are going on? How did we let all these children in the forests be there while fantasizing of a nature fairy? We're not actually going to the forests and tending to the rituals, let's say, that are done there. Now, as for the Venus opposition with Pluto, the beef with Pluto, that's the usual power relation issues. it's a crisis of Venus becoming aware of her power. Now, the thing with Pluto, I have natal Venus opposition Pluto, and one of the things that I would find out later in life, and even after the Pluto opposition, which is still not completely through, is that there were people that were actually playing the let's ignore her game. And I'm like too neurodivergent to pay attention to that. And even if I would pay attention to that, it doesn't even look like, how should I say that? It's not a healthy relation. Okay, so I was just like, okay, they're not ready slash not interested. Okay, and so in a transit that can feel like Pluto is playing the control game, the let's keep that person under a leash, and Venus is either not at all aware of, you think about, there's the story about the elephant no longer being tied. The Pluto-Venus opposition would actually be the elephant not knowing somebody tried to tie it. Okay? So, but he tried to tie it with an invisible cord, so the elephant just goes about its way and buildings collapse. And it's like, what happened? And everybody looks at the elephant. And the elephant's, what do you want? But apparently there was a ritual that was supposed to metaphysically keep that elephant in a certain position where if the elephant breaks out, the entire city collapses. Okay? That's the story of Venus and Pluto. Venus is not aware that she even has power in the face of Pluto, or that Pluto feels helpless in the face of Venus. And so Pluto will sometimes try to do its control game to keep Venus on a leash. Although, to be very honest, I actually seen that sometimes people have like a double whammy, like when somebody has their Pluto squaring or opposing somebody else's Venus, but the other person's Pluto either opposing either double whammy or a hard aspect to, let's say, the moon, which is relation. And so it's kind of like one is too busy untangling one thing to pay attention to the other. And with the Venus opposing Pluto, the situation is that Pluto will try to play the ignorance game and keep Venus under a psychological control type of eros or seduction or whatnot, only to find out that Venus interprets that as, well, I guess they're not that much into me, and moves on, to which Pluto will feel rejected and then helpless again. Okay, but that, and it's through that crisis that both of them, Venus first of all may find out that she held more power over Pluto than she considered. Okay, so Venus to a crisis find out that it's like, oh, they thought that I'm attractive, but why do they express themselves that way? I'm just like, they seem like they're absolutely not interested in my vicinity, so I just like, I don't want to be a disturbance, and I move on. And the Pluto can be completely transformed like the phoenix from the flame, because they learned cult-like ways to communicate, whether with men or with women, and they find out that in the best of cases, they find out that what didn't work here was the very fact that they used all these psychological types of dumbfuckery on Venus is the reason that they never really had a chance. Whereas maybe if they would just behave, just like if the person that is outward, if they're attracted and they're attracted and so on, and respect boundaries and so on, maybe then they would have a chance. On a science level, it can be a crisis where, let's say, think about COVID. Women stopped going to the doctor because after COVID, nobody really trusted the doctor. Okay? It's like, okay, those people in their supposed education don't really get my body and my problems, or they're fiscally tied into something that disallows them from treating the patient. I will just go about different ways with self-care and tending to my health. And so this can be an opposition where there is a confrontation when it comes to women's health or the sciences to do, social sciences even, the sciences of welfare or rehabilitation or stuff like that, and the scientific community, which perhaps is still cult-like. And then there's a confrontation where there's a crisis, and that crisis can absolutely be where, let's say, women need science for abortion, or they need science for alleviating the pain of labor, or they need science for these things, but when they meet the scientific community, they're not really respected. And so that can instigate kind of a bigger conflict. Perhaps looking for different, perhaps even going, with Uranus in Gemini, going about having alternative communities that provide medical care, even though they're not licensed to do so. So these are basically the reality checks about the Venus Cancer. What I like about this month, or what I like about Venus going through Cancer, is that, yes, everything that we like about Venus and Jupiter in Cancer is going to be present. It's not like it's not going to be there. And that can help alleviate a lot of the tensions that we have around, like, the other places. Okay, it's kind of like there is a conflict, but within that conflict we know that to de-stress and have a good night's sleep is a part of health regimen, and is a part of being effective at work. We know that to have a philosophy or belief of that the divine god or gods or daimon is benevolent is a part of a spirituality, or if the practice, if the way spirituality is practiced is not benevolent, we don't gaslight ourselves about that. Or we call ritual abuse or religious abuse or religious trauma in its name, saying in no name of no God is that okay. Okay, because Jupiter Cancer reminds us that spirituality and God or gods or whatnot is a self-care practice. It's supposed to be nourishing. It's supposed to be caring for ourselves. It's supposed to be caring and benevolent to ourselves and others. It's not Saturn. Okay, Saturn is like the suffering builds you. If you're suffering, is good, and so on. No, this is Jupiter. So we're going to have that in our favor, and even in the face of the Hermes, Kronos, and all those darker shades of reality, we're going to be remembering that, hey, the economy needs to support us having pleasurable connections. If it doesn't, it's invalid Venus values. Jupiter and Venus can be about the validity of beliefs. And so, hey, your tribe and community and religion, this is so beautiful. So beautiful, okay? Women rights actually matter. Where is the women rights in your God? If your God does not respect women, then we go for other God. Okay? You think about the square with Aries, between Cancer and Aries. Aries is about individuality and individual right, and the Cancer is about the family, the nation, community rights, and so on. And this is where it's kind of like, hey, your community wants sovereignty and the independence. Fantastic. How do you treat women? Why am I getting applications in my country from women from your tribe to come to my country because of the way they're treated by men? So it's like you can have your sovereignty, but you're gonna have to do something about those issues. And this is also the venupiter conjunction. If you think about the fact that the World War, the Second World War, because that happened in 1942, and the Second World War was beyond the horrid mass slaughter of completely innocent people. So, as always, when it's mass murder, there are always going to be crooks that are dead too. But in general, many people that were just people were slaughtered. In Soviet Russia, if the neighbor didn't like you, you were a spy. In Nazi Germany, if the neighbor didn't like you, you were a Jew. And when Nazi Germany expanded to Europe and to Africa and to the Middle East, then the same. If the neighbor didn't like you, you're a Jew. There's no problems. Like, who is the what? How do these Nazis people work? They see if person is Jew, they take them to prison. What qualifies as Jew? If you're not completely 100% Irish. Oh, you see that neighbor over there, and that person that always parks their car next to my car with too much that I cannot leave the parking lot, and that person that this, and that person that, and you know all these weird things that people do in the astral that nobody can get it. That is like, yeah, I kind of think that person is Jew. Like you don't have anything on them because it's not visible. It's like, yeah, I kind of think that person is Jew. And lo and behold, they go into the gas chambers. Of course, that can happen to the same person that complained either. Same as in Soviet Russia. And in that way, everybody dies. However, if we think about the juxtaposition of that and the fact that we also can't ignore the fact that after the Second World War, women got the right to vote. The Declaration of Independence of Israel, okay? Palestinians raise the standard. We are here waiting for the Palestinians to raise the standard because there's a lot of Israelis going, we're loyal to the Declaration of Independence. All this King David talks is given exile. Yes, we were also too busy overcoming our own ritual abuse and assassination of everybody that tried to tend to negotiations. Palestinian Declaration of Independence. Can we do better than a Capricorn moon, please? So, yes, we're also pissed that we don't have housing without attempts to traffic us and people thinking that they're going to build an empire state in Gaza Strip and compete with the tycoons in that field as well. And our people are kidnapped and dead by the hundreds. over nothing. What is, I need a chart for this. What is, of course, it's Mercury ruled mid-heaven. A lot of benevolence. Jupiter is in the 11th house. It's the 11th degree, not 11th house. This is a suicidal message. Lot of fortune, 22 degrees. Aquarius. Is giving them a side. Anyway.